The evening sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Opal, Wyoming Territory, as Zara Langford stared out the window of her father's mercantile, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the cold silver band on her left hand that felt heavier with each passing day. 1878 was supposed to be the year her life changed for the better, not the year she surrendered her dreams to a man whose touch left her cold. "Zara, darling, are you listening?" Her mother's voice cut through her thoughts. "Judge Porter's son will be here tomorrow to finalize the wedding arrangements. This match will save your father's business and secure our position in Opal. You should be grateful." Grateful. The word tasted bitter in Zara's mouth. At 22, she had imagined love would feel different than this calculated arrangement with Theodore Porter, the ambitious banker's son whose interest in her seemed limited to her father's struggling store and the land it sat on. "Yes, mother," she replied, her voice hollow as empty promises. She turned back to the inventory ledger, the numbers blurring before her eyes. The bell above the door jingled, and Zara looked up expecting to see Mrs. Henderson for her weekly supplies. Instead, a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun stepped inside, bringing with him the scent of leather, horse, and open prairie. "Afternoon," the stranger said, removing his hat to reveal sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. His dark hair was longer than most men in town wore theirs, and a few days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw. "Was hoping to pick up some supplies before heading back out." Zara straightened her posture and found her professional voice. "Of course, sir. What can I help you with today?" The man approached the counter, his spurs making a gentle rhythm against the wooden floor. "Coffee, ammunition for a Winchester, some jerky if you've got it." His eyes met hers, and for a moment Zara felt something stir within her that Theodore's careful courtship had never awakened. "We have all those things," she said, turning to gather the items. "Are you passing through or staying in Opal?" "Depends," he said, his voice carrying a hint of something she couldn't identify. "Name's Zachary James. Just bought the old Holloway ranch outside town, aiming to make something of it." Zara nearly dropped the container of coffee. The Holloway place had been abandoned for years after the drought drove the family east. "That's quite an undertaking, Mr. James." His smile reached his eyes, crinkling the corners. "Call me Zach. And I've never been one to shy away from hard work, Miss Langford. Zara Langford." She found herself returning his smile, the first genuine one she'd felt in months. "Well, Miss Langford, I'll be needing more than just these basics if I'm going to get that place running again. I'll be a regular customer, I expect." The door opened again, and Theodore Porter walked in, his tailored suit immaculate despite the dusty streets. Zara's smile faded instantly. "Zara, my dear," Theodore said, pointedly ignoring Zachary as he approached the counter. "Father has approved the additional funds for the wedding. We can now afford the ceremony you deserve." His voice carried the confidence of a man who believed money could buy anything, including a bride's affection. "That's wonderful," Zara managed, feeling the weight of Zachary's curious gaze. Theodore finally acknowledged the cowboy with a dismissive glance. "I don't believe we've met." "Zachary James, just bought the Holloway place." Theodore's eyebrows rose slightly. "Did you now? Bold move considering its condition. Well, best of luck to you." His tone suggested he expected Zachary to fail. "Zara, I'll call for you at 7 for dinner at my parents' home." It wasn't a question. After Theodore left, silence filled the store until Zachary placed his money on the counter. "Congratulations on your engagement," he said, though his tone lacked enthusiasm. "Thank you," Zara replied automatically, wrapping his purchases. "He seems." Zachary paused, choosing his words carefully. "Certain of himself." Zara looked up, meeting his gaze. Yes, Theodore is very certain about many things. And you, Miss Langford, what are you certain of? The question caught her off guard. No one had asked what she wanted in a very long time. I'm certain that sunsets in Wyoming are beautiful, she said finally, and that my father's store has the best coffee in the territory. Zachary's laugh was warm and genuine. Fair enough. I'll be back to test that claim about the coffee. He placed his hat back on his head and gathered his supplies. Good day, Miss Langford. As the door closed behind him, Zara found herself staring at the empty space he had occupied, the familiar ache of longing in her chest now accompanied by something new, something that felt dangerously like hope. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of spring day that promised possibilities. Zara arrived early at the mercantile, needing the solace of organizing shelves before her father arrived. Last night's dinner with the Porters had been suffocating hours of wedding plans and Theodore's father, Judge Porter, discussing how the mercantile would make an excellent addition to his son's growing business interests. The bell jangled, and Zara turned, surprised to see anyone this early. Zachary James stood in the doorway, hat in hand. Mr. James, you're an early riser. Ranch work doesn't wait for the sun, he said, stepping inside, and I believe I was promised exceptional coffee. Despite herself, Zara smiled. I don't recall making promises, but I can certainly oblige. She moved to the back room and returned with a freshly brewed pot. Consider this a welcome to Opal. As she poured him a cup, their fingers brushed, and Zara felt a warmth that traveled up her arm and settled somewhere near her heart. Thank you kindly, he said, his eyes never leaving hers as he took a sip. You didn't exaggerate. This might be the best coffee I've had since leaving Texas. Texas? Zara leaned against the counter, suddenly curious about this man who seemed so different from anyone in Opal. That's a long way from Wyoming. Wanted to make my own way, Zachary replied, setting down his cup. My father has a spread near San Antonio, but there's 6 of us brothers, not much room for making my own decisions. I understand that feeling, Zara said quietly. Zachary studied her for a moment. Your fiancé. He seems like a man who knows what he wants. Theodore has planned his life meticulously, she replied, avoiding his gaze, including who would make a suitable wife. And do you find his plans to your liking? The directness of his question should have offended her, but instead, Zara found it refreshing after months of polite pretense. My father's business is struggling. The Porters have influence. It's a sensible arrangement. Sensible, Zachary repeated, as if testing the word. Not exactly what songs are written about, is it? Before Zara could respond, her father entered from the back room. Zara, who are you? He paused upon seeing Zachary. Good morning, sir. Samuel Langford, proprietor. Zachary James. I've just purchased the Holloway Ranch. Samuel's expression brightened. Well now, that's excellent news. That property has potential with the right management. What brings you to our store so early? Your daughter's coffee and some additional supplies. I'm looking to repair the fencing on the north side before my cattle arrive next week. Cattle, you say? Ambitious. Samuel nodded approvingly. We can certainly help with whatever you need. Zara, why don't you show Mr. James our selection of tools? As Zara led Zachary to the back of the store, she felt her father's approving gaze. Any potential customer who might revitalize his struggling business was welcome, especially one investing in livestock. Your father seems a good man, Zachary observed as they examined the tools. He is, Zara agreed. He's worked hard all his life, but the drought hit everyone hard, and the railroad's new route bypassing Opal didn't help matters. And that's why you're marrying Porter. The question was soft, without judgment. Zara stiffened. My engagement to Theodore is not your concern, Mr. James, he nodded, respecting her rebuke. You're right, I apologize. He selected a hammer and some nails. I'll take these and whatever rope you have. Their conversation turned to practical matters, but as Zachary prepared to leave, loaded with supplies, he paused. Miss Langford, I'm hosting a small gathering at my place this Saturday. Nothing fancy, just a way to meet my neighbors. Your family would be welcome. That's very kind, but I'm not sure. I'd be honored if you'd come, he interrupted, his gaze direct. All of you, of course. Something in his eyes made refusing impossible. I'll speak with my parents, she said finally. Zachary smiled. Good day, Miss Langford. As he left, Zara found herself wondering what it might be like to visit the Holloway Ranch, now the James Ranch, and what it might feel like to be there, not as a dutiful daughter or future bride, but simply as herself. Saturday arrived with unseasonal warmth, the kind that made winter feel like a distant memory. Zara stood before her wardrobe, deliberating longer than she should have over her dress. She finally selected a blue calico that brought out her eyes, a detail she told herself didn't matter. You're certainly taking your time, her mother observed from the doorway. It's only a neighbor's gathering, not a formal affair. I know, Mother, Zara replied, smoothing the fabric. I just want to look presentable. Her mother's shrewd eyes missed nothing. Theodore was disappointed you declined his invitation to the concert in Cheyenne today. Guilt fluttered in Zara's stomach. Father thought it important we establish good relations with Mr. James. He could become one of our best customers. Indeed. Her mother's tone suggested she understood more than Zara wished her to. Well, your father is waiting with the wagon. We shouldn't be late. The ride to the James Ranch took nearly an hour, giving Zara ample time to wonder if she had made a mistake in accepting the invitation. What if Theodore heard of her attendance? What if her interest in Zachary James was as transparent to others as it felt to her? The ranch came into view, and Zara's breath caught. The main house, once neglected, had been freshly painted, and several new outbuildings dotted the property. A handful of horses grazed in a corral, and men were busy constructing what appeared to be additional stables. He's certainly not wasting time, her father remarked, impressed. Looks like he means to succeed here. They were greeted by Zachary himself, who emerged from the barn as their wagon approached. He wore clean work clothes, his hair still damp from washing, and his smile when he spotted Zara made her heart skip in a way that should have alarmed her more than it did. The Langfords. Welcome to my humble beginnings. He helped Zara down from the wagon, his hand strong and sure on her waist. Miss Langford, you look lovely today. Thank you, she murmured, acutely aware of her parents' presence. Your ranch is coming along wonderfully. Still plenty to do, he said, but I've never been afraid of hard work. Come, let me introduce you to everyone. The gathering was small but lively. Several neighboring ranchers had come with their families, along with Opal's doctor and schoolteacher. Zachary led them to a long table set up under a large oak tree, where a simple but hearty meal awaited. Throughout the afternoon, Zara found herself repeatedly drawn into conversation with Zachary. He spoke passionately about his plans for the ranch, his respect for the land, and his desire to build something lasting. Why Wyoming? She asked as they walked along the edge of a small creek that cut through his property. Her parents were deep in conversation with the doctor and his wife, providing a rare moment of privacy. I wanted somewhere with room to breathe, he answered, skipping a stone across the water. Somewhere I could build something that was entirely my own. And there was nothing holding you in Texas. Zachary glanced at her, a hint of amusement in his eyes. If you're asking if I left a woman behind, the answer is no. My heart was free when I came to Opal. the implication that it might no longer be hung in the air between them. Zara looked away, focusing on the distant mountains. Theodore believes Opal has potential for growth, especially if the railroad reconsiders its route. And what do you believe, Zara? He rarely used her first name, and it sounded different on his lips, like a caress. I believe. She hesitated, then found her courage. I believe I've never thought much about what I want. It's always been about what's best for the family, for the business. And now I find myself thinking about it too much. Zachary took a step closer. And what is it you want? Before she could answer, her mother's voice called from the gathering. Zara, your father is ready to return home. The spell broken, Zara stepped back. I should go. Zachary nodded, disappointment evident in his expression. Thank you for coming today. As they walked back to the gathering, he added quietly, Theodore Porter is in town today. I saw him at the general store when I went for supplies this morning. Zara's step faltered. He told me he was going to Cheyenne. Well, unless he has a twin, he was very much an Opal, in conversation with a lady I didn't recognize. The information settled uncomfortably in Zara's mind as she bid farewell to Zachary and joined her parents for the ride home. Theodore had lied about his whereabouts, but why? And who was the woman he met instead? These questions occupied her thoughts until the following Wednesday, when Theodore appeared at the Mercantile, immaculately dressed as always. Zara, my dear, he greeted, kissing her cheek with practiced precision. I've missed you. How was Cheyenne? She asked, watching his face carefully. Not a flicker of discomfort crossed his features. Stimulating as always. The concert was magnificent. You would have enjoyed it. Perhaps next time, she said, the lie between them as tangible as the counter separating their bodies. Theodore produced a small package. I brought you a gift, a token of my affection. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, tasteful and expensive. It's beautiful, Zara said, feeling nothing as she slipped it onto her wrist. Not as beautiful as you'll be on our wedding day. Theodore checked his pocket watch. I must go. Father has a meeting with potential investors for our new bank venture. Dinner on Friday, of course, Zara replied automatically. After he left, she removed the bracelet and placed it in her apron pocket, where it weighed like a shackle. The bell rang again, and Zara looked up to find Zachary entering, his expression brightening when he saw her alone. Miss Langford. Mr. James, how can I help you today? I need some items for the house, he said, approaching the counter. And I was hoping to see you. The directness of his admission made her cheeks warm. Mr. James, I'm engaged to be married. Yes, to a man who tells you he's in Cheyenne when he's in Opal meeting another woman. Zachary's voice was gentle despite his words. I'm not trying to interfere, Zara, but I saw what I saw. It could be innocent, she defended, though her heart wasn't in it. It could be, he agreed. Or it could be that the man you're prepared to spend your life with isn't being honest with you. And why would you care? The question came out sharper than intended. Zachary's gaze was steady. Because I think you deserve more than a sensible arrangement. I think you deserve passion, honesty, and a man who sees you for the extraordinary woman you are. Zara's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Mr. James, Zach, he corrected softly. Call me Zach. Zach, she repeated, the name feeling intimate on her tongue. I can't. I have obligations. To a man who doesn't treasure you, he shook his head. At least find out the truth before you bind yourself to him forever. The wisdom in his words was undeniable. And how would you suggest I do that? Theodore will be at the new saloon Friday evening, according to what I overheard. Something about celebrating their new bank venture with investors. He paused. I thought you said you had dinner with him on Fridays. The implication was clear. Another lie. Thank you for telling me, Zara said quietly. Zachary nodded, his expression somber. I'd still like to purchase those household items. As she gathered his supplies, Zara felt as though she stood at a crossroads, with two diverging paths stretching before her, one safe and predetermined, the other unknown and potentially heartbreaking. Friday evening arrived with a note from Theodore, explaining that business required his attention and their dinner would need to be rescheduled. The neat handwriting belied the deception within, and Zara made her decision. "I'm going for a walk, Mother," she announced, donning her shawl. "I need some fresh air." Her mother looked up from her needlework. "Don't be too long. There's a chill in the air tonight." Opal was small enough that Zara could easily locate the new saloon near the edge of town. She hesitated outside, the sounds of piano music and laughter spilling onto the street. Women rarely entered such establishments alone, but her need for truth outweighed propriety. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room fell momentarily silent as heads turned toward her, but she ignored the stares, scanning the crowded tables until she spotted Theodore in the far corner. He wasn't alone. A woman with vibrant red hair sat beside him, his arm draped possessively around her shoulders as he whispered something in her ear that made her laugh. The woman was beautiful in a bold way that Zara, with her quiet demeanor, had never been. "Miss Langford." A familiar voice spoke beside her, and Zara turned to find Zachary standing there, his expression concerned. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I needed to know," she said simply, her gaze returning to Theodore, who still hadn't noticed her presence. "I'm sorry," Zachary said softly. "You shouldn't have had to see this." "No, I'm glad I did." Her voice was surprisingly steady. "It makes what I need to do much clearer." As if sensing her gaze, Theodore looked up then, his eyes widening in shock as he recognized her. He quickly removed his arm from the redhead and stood, making his way toward them with forced nonchalance. "Zara, what a surprise," he said, his tone suggesting she was the one who had done something inappropriate. "I was just discussing business with Miss Reynolds. Her father is considering investing in our bank." "How convenient that your business meetings include such intimacy," Zara replied, reaching into her pocket to retrieve his bracelet. "I believe this belongs with you and your business associate." She placed it in his palm, aware of the watching eyes around them. "Our engagement is over, Theodore. I won't marry a man who lies so easily." Theodore's face darkened. "You're making a scene over nothing. Miss Reynolds and I are welcome to each other," Zara interrupted. "Please don't call on me again." She turned to leave, head held high despite the whispers that followed her. Zachary was beside her in an instant, his hand gently at her elbow as he guided her outside. "That was brave," he said once they were on the street. "It didn't feel brave," she admitted. "It felt necessary." They walked in silence for a moment, the cool evening air a balm to her heated cheeks. "Would you allow me to escort you home?" he asked. "Not yet," Zara replied. "I'm not ready to face questions. Could we walk for a while?" Zachary nodded, and they fell into step together, following the quiet streets until they reached the edge of town where the vast Wyoming wilderness began. "Will there be consequences?" he asked finally. "For breaking the engagement," Zara considered this. "Theodore's pride is wounded and his father won't be pleased. They had plans for my father's store," she sighed. "But I couldn't go through with it, not knowing what I know now. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Because now I'm free to consider other offers." She asked, a hint of challenge in her voice. Zachary stopped walking and turned to face her. "Because now you're free to choose your own path, whatever that may be. I would never presume to think you'd leap from one man's arms to another's without consideration." His respect for her autonomy touched Zara deeply. "Thank you for that. But," he continued, a small smile playing at his lips, I won't pretend I'm not hoping you might consider me when you're ready. The honesty of his admission warmed her. Zach. You don't need to say anything now, he assured her. I'm a patient man, Zara Langford, and some things are worth waiting for. As they resumed walking, Zara felt a curious lightness in her chest, the weight of obligation lifted, replaced by the unfamiliar but exhilarating sensation of possibility. The following weeks brought changes to Opal and to Zara's life that she could never have anticipated. News of her broken engagement spread quickly through the small town, bringing with it a mixture of sympathy and judgment. Theodore, his pride wounded, spread rumors that Zara had been unfaithful, while the red-headed Miss Reynolds mysteriously departed for Denver shortly after the incident at the saloon. Most painful was Judge Porter's swift retaliation. He called in loans that Samuel Langford had taken to keep the mercantile afloat during lean times, demanding immediate repayment and threatening foreclosure when Samuel explained he couldn't meet such terms. They mean to ruin us, Zara's father said one evening, his normally robust frame seeming smaller as he sat at their kitchen table. 30 years I've run that store, built it from nothing, and now it's my fault, Zara whispered, guilt wrapping around her heart. If I had just gone through with the wedding, no. Her father's voice was firm. I would never trade my daughter's happiness for financial security. We'll find another way. But as days passed, no solution presented itself. The Porters controlled the only bank in Opal, and no one would risk opposing them by offering the Langfords assistance. Customers still came to the mercantile, but many of the town's more influential families began taking their business to the general store on the other side of town. It was on a particularly difficult day, when Zara had spent hours recalculating their dwindling finances, that Zachary James appeared at the store. He had been a constant, if respectful, presence in her life since that night at the saloon, stopping by for supplies and conversation but never pressing for more than she was ready to give. Miss Langford, he greeted, noting her tired eyes. Rough day. Just business matters, she replied, attempting a smile. What can I help you with today? Instead of listing supplies, Zachary placed a folded document on the counter. I'd like you to look at this. Puzzled, Zara opened it to find a business proposal, neatly written in a lawyer's hand. What is this? A partnership offer, he explained. My ranch needs supplies and I need someone with experience in merchandise and inventory, someone I can trust. Zara's eyes widened as she read further. You're proposing to invest in our store. I'm proposing to save it, he corrected gently. And in return, your father's expertise would help me establish a trading post at my ranch to serve the outlying farms and homesteads. Hope, fragile and tentative, began to bloom in Zara's chest. Why would you do this? Because I believe in your family's business and because. He hesitated, then continued with determination. Because I care for you, Zara. I won't pretend that's not part of it. But this offer stands regardless of your feelings toward me. It's a sound business decision. Zara studied his face, searching for any sign of deception but finding only sincerity. I need to discuss this with my father. Of course. Take all the time you need. Later that evening, after reviewing the proposal with her parents, Samuel Langford sat back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. It's generous, he admitted, and fair. James seems to understand business better than I gave him credit for. The question, her mother interjected, is what he expects in return from our daughter. Mother, Zara protested. Zach has been nothing but respectful. He made it clear this partnership stands regardless of personal matters. Her parents exchanged knowing looks. And are there personal matters to consider? Her father asked gently. Zara felt her cheeks warm. I admire him, she admitted. He's hardworking, honest, and kind, but after Theodore, I'm hesitant to rush into anything. As you should be, her mother agreed, surprising her. But don't let one man's dishonesty blind you to another's integrity. The following day, Zara rode out to the James ranch alone, the partnership papers in her satchel. The property had transformed even further in the weeks since she'd last visited. Cattle now grazed in fenced pastures, and the framework of a large barn was taking shape near the main house. She found Zachary mending a corral fence, his shirt clinging to his back with honest sweat. He straightened immediately upon seeing her approach, a smile lighting his features. "Zara," he said, foregoing formality, "this is a pleasant surprise." "I've brought the papers," she said, dismounting from her horse. "My father has reviewed them and is prepared to accept your offer with one condition." Zachary raised an eyebrow. "And that is?" "That you explain your true intentions. Not the business aspect, that's clear enough, but what you hope will come of this partnership between our families." His expression turned serious as he set aside his tools and approached her. "My true intentions," he repeated. "They're simple enough. I intend to build something lasting here in Opal. I intend to work hard, deal fairly, and create a life I can be proud of." He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. "And I intend to court you properly, Zara Langford, if you'll allow it, not because of this business arrangement, but despite it." The sincerity in his voice made her heart race. "Courting requires time," she said softly. "I need to be sure this time. I told you before I'm a patient man." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand in his. "We have all the time in the world." As spring melted into summer, the partnership between Zachary James and Samuel Langford flourished. The mercantile, freed from the porter's financial stranglehold, once again became the heart of Opal's commerce. Meanwhile, the trading post at the James Ranch attracted settlers from miles around, creating a new hub of activity outside town. Judge Porter and Theodore made their displeasure known through small acts of obstruction, denying permits, challenging property lines, spreading whispers, but their influence waned as Zachary's star rose in the community. And through it all, Zachary courted Zara with a patience and determination that gradually melted the walls around her heart. They began with chaperoned rides and walks, progressing to picnics by the creek that ran through his property and evenings on her family's porch, talking until the stars emerged. It was during one such evening in late July, the air heavy with summer heat and the scent of blooming wildflowers, that Zara finally gave voice to her feelings. "I used to think love was quiet," she said as they sat side by side on the porch swing. "A comfortable arrangement, a sensible partnership." "And now?" Zachary asked, his voice a low rumble in the gathering dusk. Zara turned to face him, her heart pounding. "Now I think it's like wildfire, unexpected, untamed, and capable of changing everything in its path." His eyes darkened at her words. "Zara, I've been cautious," she continued, finding courage in the night shadows, "afraid of making another mistake, but the only mistake would be denying what I feel for you any longer." The swing creaked to a stop as Zachary shifted to face her fully. "And what do you feel? I think you know," she whispered. "I want to hear you say it." The vulnerability in his request touched her deeply. "I love you, Zach, not because you saved my father's business or because you're building something impressive here in Opal. I love you because you truly saw me when I was invisible even to myself." The joy that transformed his face was like sunrise after the longest night. "I've loved you since that first day in the mercantile," he confessed. "When you looked me in the eye and told me your father's store had the best coffee in the territory." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb gently tracing her lower lip. "May I kiss you, Zara Langford?" In answer, She closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something that left them both breathless. This, Zara realized, was what had been missing with Theodore, this overwhelming sense of rightness, of coming home. When they finally parted, Zachary rested his forehead against hers. "I want to ask you something," he said, his voice husky, "but I don't want to rush you." Zara's heart skipped. "Ask me." He drew back slightly, reaching into his pocket to produce a simple gold band set with a small but perfect diamond. "This was my grandmother's," he explained. "She gave it to me before I left Texas, told me to give it to the woman who made my heart feel like it couldn't fit in my chest anymore." His smile was tender as he held the ring between them. "That's how I feel every time I look at you." Tears welled in Zara's eyes. "Zach, marry me, Zara. Not today, not tomorrow, whenever you're ready, but promise me that someday you'll be my wife." The answer required no thought. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Zara felt the last vestiges of her past life fall away. The loveless engagement that had once defined her future was now nothing more than a stepping stone that had led her here to this man, this moment, this promise of passion and partnership combined. The news of their engagement spread through Opal with the swiftness of prairie fire. Most townspeople offered genuine congratulations, having witnessed the positive changes Zachary had brought to the community. Even those who had initially sided with the Porters found it difficult to maintain animosity in the face of such obvious prosperity. Only Theodore remained bitter, his resentment festering as he watched Zara flourish under Zachary's attention. The final insult came when his father's bank lost a significant business opportunity to a competing institution from Cheyenne, which had partnered with Zachary to establish a branch in Opal. "He's systematically dismantling everything we've built here," Theodore raged one evening at the saloon, his words slurred from too much whiskey. "And he took her from me." "She was never yours to begin with," remarked Oliver Rathbone, the blacksmith's son who had never particularly liked Theodore. "Seems to me Zara Langford finally found a real man instead of a boy playing at business." The insult, delivered before an audience of townsmen, proved too much for Theodore's wounded pride. He staggered to his feet, fumbling for the pistol he carried but rarely used. "I'll show you who's a real man," he slurred, his finger clumsy on the trigger. What happened next would be retold in Opal for years to come. Theodore's unsteady hand caused the pistol to discharge prematurely, the bullet embedding itself in the saloon's ceiling rather than in Oliver. Before he could attempt a second shot, several men tackled him to the ground, disarming him while the bartender sent for the sheriff. By morning, Theodore Porter found himself in Opal's small jail, facing charges of attempted murder and public endangerment. Judge Porter, for all his influence, could not dismiss such serious charges witnessed by half the town. The best he could negotiate was Theodore's release into his custody, with the agreement that his son would leave Wyoming Territory immediately for health reasons. Zara learned of the incident from her father, who returned from town with the news. "Theodore's gone east on the morning train," he reported, settling into his chair at the breakfast table. "Apparently headed to relatives in Boston." Judge Porter was tight-lipped, but word is Theodore won't be welcome back in Opal. "I'm sorry it came to this," Zara said, genuinely troubled by how far Theodore had fallen. "I never wished him ill." "That's because you have a good heart," Zachary said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. He had taken to joining the Langfords for breakfast several mornings a week, a habit that felt increasingly natural. But some men create their own downfall. With Theodore's departure, the last shadow over Zara's happiness lifted. She and Zachary set their wedding date for October, when the aspen trees would turn golden and the first cool breezes would sweep down from the mountains. The months of preparation passed in a blur of activity. The trading post at Zachary's ranch expanded to include a small restaurant run by a French chef who had inexplicably found his way to Wyoming. The mercantile in town underwent renovations, emerging larger and better stocked than ever before. And Zara, to her surprise, discovered a talent for business that matched her father's, introducing innovations that attracted customers from as far as Cheyenne. Throughout it all, her relationship with Zachary deepened beyond the initial fire of attraction into something more enduring, a partnership of equals, built on respect and a shared vision of the future. "We should build a school," she suggested one evening as they rode along the boundaries of his property, now their property in all but legal terms, "for the children of the ranch hands and surrounding homesteads." Zachary smiled at her enthusiasm. "Already thinking about our children's education." The mention of children sent a warm flush through Zara. "Perhaps," she admitted, "but also for the dozen families who have settled within 5 miles of here in the last few months. Every child deserves an education." "Then we'll build a school," he agreed without hesitation. "And find a teacher who understands that girls should learn mathematics and boys should learn cooking." Zara laughed, delighted by his progressive thinking. "You continue to surprise me, Zachary James." "I hope to do so for the next 50 years or more," he replied, his eyes crinkling with sincerity. When their wedding day finally arrived, Opal transformed for the celebration. The entire town seemed to participate, with garlands of autumn flowers decorating the small church and tables laden with food stretching down the main street. Even the weather cooperated, providing a crisp, clear day with skies the exact blue of Zara's eyes. As she prepared in her childhood bedroom, her mother helping with the final adjustments to her gown, ivory silk, ordered specially from Denver, Zara felt a profound sense of rightness. "You look beautiful," her mother said, smoothing the veil over Zara's dark hair. "And more importantly, you look happy." "I am happy," Zara confirmed, "happier than I ever thought possible." Her mother's eyes grew misty. "When your father and I agreed to Theodore's courtship, we thought we were securing your future. We never considered that I might want more than security," Zara finished gently. "That you deserved passion as well as partnership," her mother corrected. "Zachary James is a good man who looks at you like you're the sun and moon combined. That's what marriage should be." When Zara walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she had eyes only for Zachary, standing tall and handsome at the altar. His expression as he watched her approach was everything her mother had described: wonder, desire, and devotion combined in a look that made her feel like the most precious woman on earth. Their vows, spoken in clear, unwavering voices, were traditional in structure but deeply personal in meaning. They promised to cherish and support each other, to build a life of purpose and joy, to face whatever challenges came their way as one united force. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared, his weathered face beaming with approval. "You may kiss your bride." Zachary took Zara's face between his hands with infinite tenderness, as if she were made of the most delicate porcelain. "I love you, Mrs. James," he whispered, for her ears alone. "And I love you," she replied, just before his lips claimed hers in a kiss that balanced perfectly between proper public decorum and the promise of private passion to come. The celebration lasted well into the night, with dancing, feasting, and enough goodwill to wash away the last lingering memories of Theodore Porter and what might have been. As darkness fell and lanterns illuminated the festivities, Zachary led Zara away from the crowd, toward a waiting carriage decorated with flowers and ribbons. "Ready to see your new home?" he asked, helping her inside. Though she had visited the ranch countless times, they had decided weeks ago that Zara would not see the inside of the main house until after their wedding. Zachary had insisted on preparing it as a surprise, allowing only her mother and a few trusted friends to assist with the final touches. "More than ready," she replied, settling against him as the carriage began its journey toward their future. The house, when they arrived, was aglow with warm light from every window. Zachary insisted on carrying her across the threshold, setting her down gently in an entryway adorned with fresh flowers and polished woodwork. "Welcome home, Zara James," he said, his voice husky with emotion. He gave her a tour of the rooms she would come to know intimately in the years ahead: the spacious kitchen with its modern stove, the comfortable parlor with bookshelves already filled with her favorite volumes, the study where they would manage their growing enterprises together. "You've thought of everything," she marveled, touched by the care evident in every detail. "I had help," he admitted. "Your mother was very specific about what a proper home should include." They ended the tour at the master bedroom, where Zachary hesitated for the first time that evening. "If you need time," he began, uncertainty clouding his features. Zara silenced him with a kiss that left no doubt about her readiness. "I have waited long enough to be truly yours," she whispered against his lips. "I don't wish to wait another moment." What followed was a night of discovery and tenderness, of passion that had been restrained for months finally finding its full expression. Zachary proved as attentive and intuitive a lover as he was a partner, guiding Zara through initial discomfort into realms of pleasure she had never imagined possible. "Is it always like this?" she asked much later, her body curled against his in the peaceful aftermath of their lovemaking. Zachary's laugh rumbled through his chest beneath her cheek. "No," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It gets better." True to his word, their physical relationship deepened alongside their emotional connection in the months that followed. Zara bloomed under Zachary's loving attention, discovering a boldness in herself that extended beyond their bedroom into all aspects of their shared life. She took an increasingly active role in their business ventures, her keen mind for numbers complementing Zachary's visionary approach. Together, they expanded the trading post into a thriving commercial center that served the growing community around their ranch. They built the school Zara had envisioned, hiring a progressive young teacher from Denver who shared their belief in equal education for all children. By their first anniversary, their happiness was made complete by the news that Zara was expecting their first child. The pregnancy, while challenging at times, only strengthened the bond between them as Zachary attended to her every need with loving care. "You don't have to treat me like I'm made of glass," she protested one evening as he insisted on carrying her up the stairs to bed. "Humor me," he replied with a grin. "I've waited a long time to have a family of my own. I intend to cherish every moment of it." Their son, Samuel Zachary James, was born on a snowy night in early March, his lusty cries announcing a healthy pair of lungs and a determination that his parents recognized in each other. "He has your eyes," Zachary whispered in awe as he held his son for the first time, tears unashamedly tracking down his cheeks. "And your stubborn chin." Zara laughed tiredly from the bed. "And your impatience. He arrived 2 weeks early." "He was eager to meet us," Zachary defended, gazing adoringly at the infant. "Can't fault him for that." As spring returned to Wyoming and their son grew stronger each day, Zara often found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this life. The loveless engagement that had once seemed her destiny now felt like a distant dream, a path not taken that would have led to a shadowed version of herself. What are you thinking about?" Zachary asked one evening as they sat on the porch of their home, their son sleeping peacefully in his father's arms while the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. "How different my life might have been," Zara replied honestly. "If you hadn't come to Opal, if I hadn't found the courage to break my engagement." "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, his question genuine rather than insecure. Zara looked at him, at the man who had taught her what real love felt like, who had shown her that passion and partnership could exist in harmony, who had given her a son and a future filled with purpose. "Not for a single moment," she said, reaching out to trace the beloved contours of his face. "You showed me what passion truly means, Zach. Not just physical desire, but passion for life, for building something meaningful together, for loving deeply without reservation." He turned his head to kiss her palm. "And you showed me that home isn't a place but a person. You're my home, Zara James. You and this little one." As darkness settled over the Wyoming plains and the first stars appeared in the vast sky, they sat together in contented silence. A family forged not from obligation, but from choice, the most powerful choice Zara had ever made. Over the years that followed, Opal grew from a struggling town into a prosperous community, with the James and Langford enterprises at its heart. Zara and Zachary welcomed 2 more children, a daughter, Elizabeth, named for Zachary's mother, and another son, William, who arrived unexpectedly when they had thought their family complete. They faced challenges, of course, as all families do, drought years that tested their resources. A fire that destroyed part of the trading post and had to be rebuilt. Illnesses that brought sleepless nights of worry. But through it all, their partnership remained unshakable, their passion for each other undimmed by time or familiarity. On their 20th anniversary, with their children nearly grown and their businesses thriving beyond their wildest early dreams, Zachary surprised Zara with a journey back to Texas to meet his extended family. "Why now?" she asked as they prepared for the trip. "We could have visited years ago." Zachary's smile held the wisdom of their years together. "Because now, we return not as a couple starting out, but as proof that following your heart leads to the richest life possible." In San Antonio, surrounded by Zachary's brothers and their families, Zara understood what he meant. Their story of a woman who had broken a loveless engagement to follow her heart, and a cowboy who had traveled across states to find the woman he hadn't known he was searching for, had become a family legend, a testament to courage and the transformative power of true passion. "Do you ever wonder what became of Theodore?" Zachary asked one night as they lay together in the guest room of his eldest brother's home, the Texas heat necessitating open windows and light coverings. "Sometimes," Zara admitted. "I heard he married a banker's daughter in Boston, went into politics. Are you curious?" She turned in his arms to study the face that had grown even more beloved over 2 decades. "Only in the way one wonders about a fork in a road not taken. I know which path was meant for me." Zachary's kiss still had the power to make her heart race. His touch still awakened desire that 20 years of marriage had deepened rather than diminished. "Show me again," she whispered as his hands traced familiar paths across her body. "Show me what passion means." And in the warm Texas night, with stars shining through open windows and the distant sound of music from the city drifting on the breeze, he did, reminding her that the greatest adventure of her life had begun the day a dusty cowboy walked into her father's store and showed her a different future than the one she had resigned herself to accept. Years later, when their grandchildren gathered around asking for stories, it was this tale they requested most often: how grandfather, a determined young rancher with dreams larger than his pockets, had fallen in love with grandmother when she was promised to another man. Was it love at first sight? Their granddaughter, Zara's namesake, would inevitably ask, her romantic heart eager for confirmation. The elder Zara would exchange a knowing look with Zachary, his hair now silver but his eyes still that same stormy blue that had captured her attention so many years before. "It was recognition," she would say, "as if my heart knew his before my mind understood what was happening." "And you, grandfather," the children would prompt. "Did you know grandmother was the one right away?" Zachary's answer never varied. "The moment she looked me in the eye and told me her father's store had the best coffee in the territory," he would say with a wink toward his wife, "I knew I'd found a woman worth building a life around." Their love story, begun in the dust and promise of frontier Wyoming, continued to inspire not just their family but the community they had helped to build. The school they had established now bore their name, educating generations of children to value both practical knowledge and the courage to follow their hearts. And on quiet evenings when the day's work was done, and they sat together on the porch of the home they had shared for over 40 years, Zara would sometimes marvel at the twist of fate that had brought a Texas cowboy to her father's store on that spring day in 1878. "Thank you," she would say, her hand finding his as naturally as breathing. "For what?" he would ask, though he knew the answer. "For showing me what passion truly means in all its forms." And Zachary James, who had never regretted a single day of the life they had built together, would simply squeeze her hand in response, the gesture conveying what words could never fully express, that the greatest passion of all was not the fire of new love but the enduring flame of a love chosen every day, through joy and sorrow, prosperity and hardship, for a lifetime and beyond.